3 glasses of water. That's all he asked for. A black single father, shoulders hunched under a worn jacket, guiding 2 children who clutched his hands as if their grip could anchor them to the world. The restaurant around him gleamed with opulence. Crystal chandeliers, white linen, and patrons whose laughter floated above the quiet hum of sophistication. Yet none of that softened the sting of judgment. The manager, a man in his 50s with a tight jaw and eyes trained for disdain, approached. His voice carried an edge that made the air feel colder than the winter outside. Water? Just water? Sir, this is a 5-star restaurant, not a welfare office for broke black folks. The words landed like stones in the father's chest. But Darnell Moore, mid-30s, straightened. There was quiet dignity in the way he held his children. I can pay, he said, calm but firm. Pay with what? Food stamps. The manager's sneer cut sharper than the knives on the table. Look around you. Designer suits, Rolexes. And look at yourself, dragging kids into places you don't belong. Embarrassing yourself. Get out before you stink up the room. Laughter rippled across the restaurant. Smartphones were raised to record the moment. Whispers, smirks, and disapproving shakes of the head filled the air. Not one person stepped forward. His daughter, Maya, eyes wide with a mix of fear and confusion, clutched his hand. His son, Isaiah, hid behind his legs. Across the room, Olivia Walker watched. Chanel-clad, impeccably poised, her face was unreadable. But her eyes, sharp and precise, captured every movement, every flicker of emotion. She was 58, the CEO of Pinnacle Holdings, a tech empire built from sleepless nights, relentless ambition, and a refusal to accept defeat. Ford had called her the Ice Queen of Silicon Valley, an epithet she neither disputed nor felt compelled to correct. But tonight, the title felt hollow. Her stakes sat untouched. 12 years since her daughter, Emma, had died of leukemia, she still ordered for a ghost. Emma had been 8, tiny and bright, who had only ever asked for water before a meal. Olivia remembered the hospital room with painful clarity, the antiseptic scent, the rhythmic beeping of machines, the way Emma's hand grew lighter in hers with every passing second. She had failed to get her daughter that simple water in time, and the guilt had never left. Life had moved on in other ways. Her husband had left months later, unable to face the absence, unable to tolerate Olivia's relentless focus on work over grief. Olivia had buried herself in her empire, in meetings, in numbers, in contracts, anything that kept her from the emptiness. And now, watching Darnell Moore, she felt a pang she hadn't felt in years. Darnell's children, despite the grim atmosphere, had an aura of innocence that refused to be erased. Maya, 8, braided hair adorned with purple beads, and Isaiah, 5, clutching a one-eared stuffed rabbit, were unaware of the prejudice directed at them. They only knew their father's quiet reassurance, the gentle way he guided them, whispering words that made Maya giggle despite the tension. Darnell, former sous chef, had once commanded kitchens with expertise and passion. He could taste a sauce and name every ingredient, notice the faintest imbalance of seasoning, the slightest flaw in a presentation. But life had shifted cruelly. The pandemic shuttered his workplace, leaving him with delivery jobs, warehouse shifts, and odd work that barely paid. And Janelle, his wife, had been gone 18 months, killed by a drunk driver on an ordinary Tuesday. Tonight, he wanted only to honor her dream. Years earlier, Janelle had promised, curled on their second-hand couch with the children asleep nearby. We'll take them somewhere fancy. White tablecloths, real napkins, bread baskets with butter shaped like roses. They'll feel like princes and princesses, even just for one night. Someday never came for Janelle. But Darnell could give it to the children tonight, even if it meant scraping the bottom of his wallet. His hands shook slightly as he opened the menu. Prices leaped out at him. Butternut squash soup, $38. Garden salad, $42. Chicken with seasonal vegetables, $68. Ribeye, $112. His wallet contained $34. He had no illusions about the impossibility of ordering much else. Maya leaned toward him. Daddy, can I get the chicken? The one with the fancy name. He forced a smile, swallowing the lump in his throat. Let's start with water tonight, okay? See how we feel. Her disappointment flickered for a moment. Then she nodded, squeezing his hand. Mama always said water's the most important part. The waiter arrived, polished, trained to maintain neutrality, eyes carefully impassive. 3 glasses of water, please, Darnell said. The glasses arrived, crystal and pristine. Darnell lifted one to the light, showing Maya and Isaiah the shimmer of tiny rainbows caught in the liquid. First hello, Maya whispered. First hello, Isaiah echoed. Across the room, Olivia's breath caught. 12 years of Friday nights spent in silence, grief, and habit had left her frozen. Watching this father, holding his children steady in a world that had judged them unfairly, something inside her began to thaw. The moment was shattered as Bradley Stone, the restaurant manager, appeared again, voice deliberate and cold. Sir, I couldn't help but notice you've only ordered water. Darnell met his gaze, steady. That's correct. Nearby, the room went silent. Conversations faltered. Bradley leaned closer, voice dropping so every word was clear. Perhaps McDonald's would be more appropriate. Maya's eyes widened. Isaiah pressed close. Darnell's chest burned. He could explain his culinary background, the promise to Janelle, the poverty and heartbreak, but instead he only said, "We're fine right here." The tension in the room was palpable. And across the way, Olivia Walker, former Ice Queen, former mother, stood. Her chair scraped sharply against the floor. Every head turned. Is there a problem here? Her voice was low, controlled. Bradley recognized her immediately. His mask of arrogance cracked. These guests are with me, Olivia continued, voice unwavering. Bring the full menu. And hot chocolate for the children, extra whipped cream. Shock and disbelief spread across the room. Maya gasped. Isaiah's eyes widened. Bradley stammered. Olivia approached Darnell. Close enough to see the exhaustion, the resolve, the quiet pride. May I sit? He studied her, then nodded. For the first time tonight, he allowed someone to be present in their moment of survival. Steam curled from bowls of soup, bread baskets overflowed, and the scent of hot chocolate crowned with whipped cream filled the table. The children's faces lit up with a joy Darnell hadn't seen in months. Olivia didn't offer solutions. She didn't need to. She simply watched, felt, and allowed herself to be reminded of something she had long forgotten. The power of witnessing, of recognizing another human being in their struggle. And in that recognition, the first seeds of connection, hope, and redemption were planted. The warmth of the restaurant couldn't reach Darnell once the front door shut behind Olivia. Bradley Stone lingered near the bar, seething, his carefully cultivated mask of composure replaced with raw, simmering fury. Every step he took echoed with the authority he believed he held. Every glance aimed to intimidate. But for Darnell, nothing could match the fear of the world taking what little remained of his family. Outside, winter's cold nipped at Olivia as she followed Darnell and the children to the street. She had not expected to feel this protective, not after years of building walls so high no one could reach her. But Darnell's fight, his quiet dignity in the face of cruelty, tugged at something deep inside her, something she had buried with her daughter's memory. They'll come for them, Darnell muttered, his voice low, almost a whisper. Maya clutched his hand tightly, Isaiah still holding his stuffed rabbit. They can't just take them, not like this. They will, Olivia said, and we're going to make sure they don't. Darnell's eyes met hers, wary. You saw what happened tonight. You saw what they're capable of. I know, she admitted, but I also know who you are. You don't give up, and neither do I. That's a start. Back at Riverside Terrace, the lobby smelled of bleach and faded carpeting. A gray CPS van idled outside, its presence a stark reminder that bureaucracy had no empathy, only rules and boxes to check. Darnell had tried to prepare himself, gone over the paperwork in his head, imagined arguments and defenses. But nothing could have readied him for the moment when social workers entered his apartment, clipboard in hand, voices flat and detached. Mr. Moore, one said, we're completing the assessment. Given the pending eviction and lack of stable housing, we're recommending temporary placement for Maya and Isaiah. Temporary. The word hit Darnell like ice water. He could see the panic flash in his daughter's eyes, the fear ripple through his son. How temporary? He asked, voice tight. That depends on your ability to secure appropriate housing, the woman replied. Could be weeks. Could be months. Months. Darnell's mind spun. Eviction, bills, credit cards, the hospital debt from Janelle's accident. Every weight of life pressed on him. And now this. The system designed to protect children was being used to punish him. Maya's small voice broke through his thoughts. Daddy, the lady says we have to go with her. Is it true? He dropped to his knees, gathering them in his arms. It's going to be okay, he said, though the words sounded hollow even to him. Daddy's going to fix this. I promise. The social workers moved quickly, separating him from his children with mechanical efficiency. Maya screamed. Isaiah cried. Officers stepped in to maintain order. 3 minutes. Gone. The van doors slammed, tires squealed on concrete, and the tiny family he had left vanished down the street. Darnell stood in the hallway, chest heaving, feeling the emptiness of the apartment more acutely than ever before. Olivia reached him, silent at first, witnessing the devastation without intervening. Then, softly, I'm going to get them back. Ow! His voice was hollow, resigned. The system takes and takes. Someone wants this to happen. Bradley Stone. Victor Lawson. They're orchestrating this. Yes, Olivia admitted. And I have the resources to fight it. But I need your trust, even if it's just a little. Darnell looked at her for a long, tense moment. The walls he had built around himself, reinforced by loss and betrayal, quivered but did not collapse. Finally, he exhaled, voice quiet. Fine, help me get my children back. Then we're done. And so, the battle began. The next 4 days were a descent into chaos. Lawyers filed motions in endless succession. Judges scheduled hearings, each one a test of patience and nerve. CPS demanded home assessments, psychological evaluations, proof of income, proof of housing, proof of everything except the one thing that mattered, the father's love for his children. Meanwhile, Olivia faced her own storm. Victor Lawson, having caught wind of her interference, called an emergency board meeting. She was accused of emotional instability, conflict of interest, and fiduciary negligence. By the end of the meeting, Olivia was suspended from her own company, escorted from Pinnacle headquarters, her key card deactivated, her email inaccessible. The empire she had spent decades building seemed to crumble around her feet in a matter of hours. That night, she found Darnell sitting on the cold concrete bench outside the CPS building. He had been there since dawn, unshaven, exhausted, a man holding vigil for the children he could not see. They won't let me see them, he muttered. 48 hours, and I can't even see their faces. Olivia knelt beside him. I had a daughter, she said, words spilling out before she could stop them. Emma. She died when she was 8, same age as Maya. For the first time, Darnell looked at her fully. The night she died, I was in a board meeting. Quarterly earnings. Victor called it essential. I got to the hospital 20 minutes after she was gone. I never got to say goodbye. I never got to hold her hand. I chose money over my daughter. And I've spent 12 years trying to forget it. Silence stretched between them. She didn't ask for forgiveness. She didn't expect it. But she continued. I'm not leaving. I'm going to help you get your children back. And I'm going to bring down everyone who did this. Not because I'm good, but because maybe if I do something right, I can look at myself again. Darnell's voice was quiet but steady. Emma, that's a beautiful name. Not forgiveness, but understanding. Recognition. A fragile connection forming amidst shared pain. 3 nights later, Darnell couldn't sleep. He pored over eviction documents, scrutinized inspection reports, and examined every detail. 4th floor unit. Faulty smoke detector. Water damage. Black mold. But he lived on the 2nd floor, Unit 4B. The description didn't match. He traced signatures, licensing records, Harold Green, inspector, license expired 6 months before the inspection. Fabricated. Fraudulent. He called Olivia. I found it. The whole thing. fabricated inspections, 42 families targeted. Bradley Stone, Harold Green, Victor Lawson, every connection. By morning, they had a mountain of proof: forged reports, bribes, falsified inspections, signatures of officials long unqualified to issue them. And at the top, Victor Lawson's accounts showing deposits aligning perfectly with the fraudulent evictions. Darnell murmured, almost to himself. Janelle always said, "I notice everything." Guess she was right. Olivia looked at him, a man broken by life yet rebuilt by determination, and realized he wasn't a victim. He was a fighter, and together they would rewrite the story that had been forced upon him. The press conference was scheduled on the steps of City Hall. Cameras flashed. Reporters shouted questions. Olivia spoke first, in a simple black dress, stripping away her power, announcing her resignation, the creation of a victims fund, and an independent investigation into Pinnacle Holdings' corrupt practices. Darnell stood beside her, papers in hand. They thought I wouldn't notice. They thought because I was poor, because I was black, because I'd lost everything, I would disappear. They were wrong. My children were taken from me. My wife dreamed of giving them a better life, and instead, they saw their father humiliated, their home stolen, their future erased. But we are still here, and every family they did this to, we're coming for justice. All of us. The arrests followed. Victor Lawson, handcuffed in his office. Bradley Stone, caught at the airport with a one-way ticket to Mexico. Harold Green, the inspectors and property managers, every piece of the cruel network dismantled in a single day. Olivia watched the proceedings silently. She felt no triumph, only exhaustion, and in its place, a quiet stirring of hope. Her phone buzzed. A text from Darnell, CPS called. They're releasing Maya and Isaiah. Can you be there? 20 minutes later, she arrived to see a father reclaim his children, to witness the first steps of healing and reclamation, and to understand that sometimes the smallest acts, a glass of water, a steady hand, a witness to injustice, carry the heaviest truths. The reunion at the CPS building was quiet but charged. Maya and Isaiah clung to Darnell's legs, their faces streaked with tears, a mixture of relief, confusion, and joy. For Darnell, every moment of holding them again was a battle won. Yet the war was far from over. He'd seen the machinery of cruelty firsthand. Bradley Stone, Victor Lawson, and their network hadn't just targeted him. They'd systematically preyed on families like his, exploiting loopholes, fabricating evidence, weaponizing the law. Olivia followed silently, giving space yet remaining close enough to intervene. She understood, painfully, that this was Darnell's fight. She was an ally, a tool, a witness, but not the hero. That role belonged to him. Once they were safely inside the car, Darnell spoke without looking at her. They've done this before. Many times. Not just to us. Olivia's grip on the steering wheel tightened. I know. That's why we can't waste time. Every document, every bank record, every false inspection, it all needs to be collected and cross-referenced. We need irrefutable proof. Darnell nodded. Exhaustion weighed on him, yet a fire glimmered in his eyes. He'd learned to see patterns in chaos. As a chef, he could notice a single off-season herb, a subtle imbalance in flavor. As a father, and now a survivor, he could see the cracks in systems, the inconsistencies in reports, the fingerprints of corruption. Back at his apartment, they spread everything across the dining table. Papers, photographs, inspection reports, emails, bank statements, an avalanche of evidence. Every fraudulent inspection Darnell had uncovered told the same story. Riverside Terrace was not unique. Crescent Properties had orchestrated a city-wide scheme, targeting low-income tenants with fabricated violations, inflated rents, and false eviction notices. And each time, Bradley Stone had been a key enforcer, Harold Green the puppet, Victor Lawson the mastermind. Look at this, Darnell said, pointing to a pattern of dates and deposits. Every inspection, every eviction, every consulting fee lines up with their internal financials. They've been profiting off families losing their homes for years. Olivia leaned over the table, scanning the data. Her corporate mind clicked into place. If we build a case showing systematic fraud, linking financial records, false inspections, and your eviction specifically, we can expose the network. Publicly and legally. Darnell rubbed his temples, trying to focus. But even with evidence, the system protects them. City officials, lawyers, boards, they're all in it together. This isn't just a lawsuit. It's an empire built to crush people like me. Olivia's voice softened. Then we dismantle the empire, piece by piece. And we start here, with the proof you've collected. The media, the public, the courts, they can't ignore it. And we make sure the story doesn't just stay about you and your family. It's about every family they've hurt. Darnell finally looked at her, a flicker of trust in his eyes. You're serious? I've never been more serious in my life, she said. The following days became a blur of strategy sessions. Lawyers, journalists, and digital investigators were enlisted. Olivia leveraged contacts in legal circles and media outlets, while Darnell continued piecing together every document, every link in the chain. Together, they mapped out the fraudulent operations, connecting Crescent Properties, the housing inspectors, and Pinnacle Holdings executive board to a single, coordinated scheme. Meanwhile, at Pinnacle Holdings, Victor Lawson realized Olivia was no longer an obstacle to be placated. She was a threat. The board meetings that once humiliated her now became battlegrounds. His emails, terse and cold, hinted at panic. He underestimated Olivia's resolve, assuming her suspension and isolation had weakened her. But the opposite was true. Stripped of her corporate armor, she became a force of focused, relentless action. Back at Riverside Terrace, Darnell's life had been reduced to essentials, preparing food for Maya and Isaiah, working with Olivia on the case, and staying awake for hours combing through evidence. The children, resilient yet sensitive, provided a grounding presence. Maya often helped by sorting papers, lining them up like chef's mise en place, while Isaiah mimicked every action with his toy rabbit beside him. Their presence reminded Darnell why this fight mattered, not just for himself, but for the countless families silenced by fear and financial oppression. One night, as they reviewed financial records of Pinnacle Holdings, Darnell noticed a pattern he hadn't before. These deposits, he murmured, pointing a line of transactions. They matched the inspection dates exactly. And look, every one of these is linked to Crescent Properties subsidiaries. That's our smoking gun. Olivia nodded, eyes scanning the documents. We need to verify this through independent auditors. If we can show intent, a pattern of systematic fraud, this isn't just eviction abuse. It's corporate criminal activity. The weight of it all could have crushed anyone else. But Darnell, refined by grief and desperation, and Olivia, hardened by loss yet softened by guilt, moved forward with singular purpose. They became partners in the fight, each complementing the other's strengths. Then came the breakthrough. A whistleblower within Crescent Properties, a mid-level manager who had quietly opposed the evictions, reached out. Names, emails, insider memos, everything corroborated what Darnell and Olivia had discovered. They now had testimony, documents, and financial proof. 42 families weren't isolated victims. They were evidence of a systemic operation. Finally, the press conference was scheduled. City Hall, steps lined with cameras, reporters, and curious onlookers. Darnell and Olivia prepared for the public eye, not for spectacle, but to make sure the truth reached every corner. When Darnell stepped to the microphone, he felt the weight of the 42 families, of Maya and Isaiah, of Janelle's memory. His voice was steady, clear, carrying over the crowd. They thought I couldn't read. They thought I'd disappear. They were wrong. My children were taken from me because of lies, because of money, because of prejudice. But we are here, and we will be heard. Every family they targeted deserves justice, and we will see that justice is served. Olivia stood beside him, calm but resolute. Pinnacle Holdings has used its power to destroy families. 42 households displaced, inspections falsified, bribery evident. I take full responsibility for what I did not see, but I am here to make it right. An independent investigation will follow. and I'm stepping down as CEO to ensure accountability. Cameras flashed. Questions came in a torrent. Darnell answered each, detailing evidence, the fabricated inspections, the fraudulent accounting, the network of abuse. And for the first time in months, he felt seen, not as a victim, not as a statistic, but as a man who refused to vanish. By the end of the day, arrests were made. Victor Lawson, handcuffed, shocked at his fall from power. Bradley Stone, intercepted at the airport. Harold Green, the inspectors and property managers, all brought to justice. Olivia watched the proceedings, the cold resolve in her eyes tempered by the faint stirrings of hope. Families were reclaimed. Children returned. And in that moment, she realized her own redemption had begun, not through wealth or power, but through action, through seeing the unseen and refusing to walk away. The arrest had made headlines, yet for Darnell Moore, the story wasn't over. The legal victories meant nothing if Maya and Isaiah weren't safe, if the families affected by Crescent properties remained in limbo. Olivia Walker, now untethered from Pinnacle Holdings, devoted herself entirely to the aftermath. She had lost her empire, her reputation, but gained clarity, a purpose she hadn't felt since Emma died. At Riverside Terrace, Darnell had returned home for the first time since the CPS intervention. The apartment felt empty, echoes of loss bouncing off the walls. Boxes remained unpacked, furniture stacked in corners, a temporary chaos reflecting the emotional state of the Moore family. He knelt beside Maya, gently picking up the stack of drawings she had hidden from the social workers. Crayons, colored pencils, paper scraps, little windows in her inner world. "You've been busy," he said softly, tracing a rainbow across one of the pictures. Maya smiled faintly. "I was making a map, so I could find you even if they took us away again." Darnell's chest tightened. "You never have to worry about that again," he promised, pulling her into a hug. Isaiah, clutching his one-eared rabbit, tugged at his father's sleeve. "We're together now, Daddy." "Always," Darnell said, his voice breaking but firm. "We're never apart again." The first order of business was rebuilding trust and stability. Olivia had arranged temporary housing, but Darnell insisted on returning to Riverside Terrace, his home, his history, the place Janelle had loved. The eviction notices were gone, replaced by new management and a public commitment to fairness. Riverside Terrace would no longer be a tool for profit. It would be a home for the families who deserved one. Over the next few days, Darnell and Olivia coordinated the return of the displaced families. There were tears, laughter, and small acts of kindness. A neighbor bringing boxes, another fixing a leaky faucet, a child running to hug a returning friend. Olivia watched from the sidelines, humbled. She had commanded boardrooms, closed deals, and navigated corporate power plays, but nothing prepared her for the raw humanity of a community reclaiming its home. Darnell's own children became symbols of resilience. Maya, 8 years old, possessed an energy and determination that inspired everyone around her. She organized small welcome-back ceremonies for returning families, handing out homemade welcome cards and insisting that every meal begin with water, Janelle's tradition alive in her bright eyes. Isaiah, just 5, mirrored his sister's spirit, offering hugs and handmade napkin flowers to anyone who seemed sad. Together, father and children transformed their personal grief into a force of communal healing. Olivia facilitated legal and financial aid, ensuring every family had access to stable housing and resources. The news of Riverside Terrace's transformation spread, and soon, offers of support came from across the city. Donations, volunteers, and even local chefs joined in, drawn to the story of a father, his children, and the woman who had risked everything to fight for them. Darnell, however, never lost sight of the most personal goal, creating a space where Maya and Isaiah could feel safe, nourished, and seen. In what had once been a barren apartment complex, he envisioned a kitchen, open to the community, a place where every child could taste warmth, hope, and belonging. Weeks later, Moore Family Kitchen opened its doors. The grand unveiling was simple yet profound. White tablecloths, hand-picked utensils, and the aroma of simmering soups filled the air. Children ran to claim seats. Parents followed, eyes wide with disbelief and cautious joy. Darnell worked behind the counter, the same hands that had prepared meals in high-end kitchens now creating magic for families who had known hunger, fear, and uncertainty. Maya and Isaiah became little ambassadors, guiding newcomers to tables, explaining the menu, and spreading the warmth their mother had envisioned. "Daddy made this soup," Maya would announce proudly. "It's magic. You'll see." Isaiah would nod solemnly, whisking whipped cream onto hot chocolate with exaggerated care. Olivia visited every week, quietly helping where needed, listening where silence was requested, and marveling at the transformation. She no longer needed the grandeur of boardrooms or the clout of her former wealth. Here, she found meaning in small gestures: a bowl of soup, a child's smile, a glass of water lifted in ritual. One afternoon, as Darnell ladled soup into bowls, Olivia approached. Maya spotted her first. "Olivia, princess lady, you're here." She bounded across the room, hugging Olivia with all the energy of an 8-year-old who had learned what hope felt like. Isaiah followed, offering his dinosaur-decorated water bottle. Darnell wiped his hands, smiling. "You're early," he said. Traffic was light. They shared a quiet meal, the kind that comes from surviving storms together. Steam curled from bowls, laughter intermingled with quiet conversation, and for a moment, time felt suspended. No deadlines, no court dates, no threats, just shared humanity. "Everything's starting to fall into place," Olivia said. "The scholarship fund, the kitchens, the families, it's working." Darnell nodded. "She'd be proud. Janelle would have loved this." Olivia smiled softly. Maybe she'd wonder why it took so long for people to notice. Darnell laughed, the sound strange and warm. "And maybe she'd say I'm finally doing something right. But she'd never admit it's better than my soup." They both laughed, the kind of laughter that doesn't erase grief, but allows room for joy. Around them, more family kitchen thrived. Children did homework at corner tables. Families shared meals without judgment, and the smells of fresh bread and simmering broth became a balm for the soul. Maya, ever perceptive, led newcomers through the ritual Darnell had taught her. "Water first," she said. "It means you're welcome. It means you belong." Glasses were lifted, laughter and conversation followed, and a new tradition began. Olivia watched, heart full. The smallest things, the lifting of a glass, the warmth of a meal, carried the heaviest truths. In that kitchen, Darnell didn't need a savior. He needed witnesses, and they had arrived. A community healed, a daughter whose laughter was unbound, a son whose trust was restored. Olivia hadn't saved him, but she had saved herself by allowing herself to feel again, to act, and to believe in something beyond profit and power. The sun set over Riverside Terrace, casting a golden glow across the kitchen. Maya and Isaiah ran to the window, waving to the families outside. Darnell and Olivia shared a quiet glance, a silent acknowledgement of the journey they had survived together. More Family Kitchen wasn't just a place for food. It was a sanctuary, a testament to resilience, courage, and the power of first hellos. And in every bowl, every glass of water, every smile, the legacy of kindness, love, and courage was served, one meal at a time. The Moore Family Kitchen had become more than a building. It was a symbol of resilience, of love and courage, of the quiet power of a father who refused to break. But life, as it always does, continued to challenge, to teach, and to remind those who survived what they were capable of. Weeks passed, and Riverside Terrace became a haven. Families who had once feared eviction now flourished. Children who had lived with anxiety and uncertainty learned the warmth of consistency. A place to study, a place to eat, a place to belong. The scholarship fund, the Emma Walker Memorial Foundation, began to touch lives far beyond the building. New families arrived, drawn by the reputation of Darnell's kitchen and Maya's infectious energy. Each day, Olivia found herself returning, not as a rescuer, but as a witness, a participant, and a friend. One cold morning, Darnell stood behind the counter, ladling soup into bowls with meticulous care. Maya and Isaiah moved between tables, ensuring no child went unnoticed. "Daddy, don't forget the water," Maya reminded him with a wink. Isaiah followed, carefully adding whipped cream to hot chocolate, his tongue sticking out in concentration. Olivia watched, the sunlight falling across the kitchen floor, highlighting the dust motes dancing in the air. She had spent the previous year in the chaos of corporate fallout, suspension, internal investigations, public scrutiny, but here she saw purpose distilled into action. No boardrooms, no power plays, no press releases. Just people, meals, and love. Maya bounded up to Olivia, tugging at her hand. "Come on, time for your first hello." She led Olivia to a small table by the window. "Lift your glass. Water first. Always water first." Olivia smiled, lifting the crystal glass handed to her by Maya. The ritual was simple but profound. Darnell raised his own glass from behind the counter, catching Olivia's eyes in a shared acknowledgement. "To first hellos," he said. "To first hellos," Olivia echoed. The tradition rippled across the room. Children and parents alike lifted their glasses, some hesitantly, some laughing with delight. It was a small gesture, yet it carried immense weight. Acknowledgement, belonging, hope. Outside, the city moved on, unaware of the quiet revolution happening within these walls. Inside, every glass lifted was a defiance of despair, a tribute to resilience, and a promise of a better tomorrow. News crews had stopped filming, donors had returned to their routines, but the legacy of Moore Family Kitchen continued to grow. Families who had once been invisible found a voice, a place where they mattered. Children learned that kindness, attention, and care were not just luxuries, they were rights. And at the center of it all, Darnell Moore, once a man hollowed by loss, now stood as a beacon of what courage could achieve when combined with love. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the city in shades of gold and rose, Darnell sat at the head of the kitchen's large wooden table. Maya and Isaiah flanked him, their eyes bright, their hands folded in anticipation. Olivia took a seat across from them, a quiet observer to the life unfolding. "Daddy," Maya began, "can we tell the new kids a story? The one about the first hello?" Darnell smiled. He had told it many times now, but each telling carried its own weight, its own lessons. "Of course, baby girl. Everyone deserves to hear it." He recounted the night at La Meridian, the water, the laughter, the cruelty of Bradley Stone, and the courage of a woman who refused to remain indifferent. Maya's eyes widened. Isaiah clutched his rabbit tighter, and Olivia's hands rested on the table, gripping the wood as if anchoring herself in the story. "And that's why," Darnell concluded, "we start with water. It's not just a drink. It's a promise. A promise that you belong. A promise that someone sees you. A promise that the world, no matter how cruel, has space for kindness." The room fell silent, the kind of silence that isn't emptiness but reverence. Then, as if on cue, glasses lifted, clinking together in a harmonious chorus. Laughter followed. Conversations resumed. Children's footsteps echoed across the floor. The kitchen, once just a place to eat, had become a sanctuary of hope, witness, and love. Olivia leaned back in her chair, eyes misting. "She'd be proud," she whispered. Not herself, not Darnell, but Janelle. She imagined the mother who had envisioned this very moment, the children she had loved so fiercely. "She's proud," Darnell said softly, reading her expression. Months passed. Moore Family Kitchen expanded. Local schools partnered to provide tutoring programs. Families who had faced systemic injustice found stability, and the first hello tradition became a ritual, a cultural touchstone. Maya and Isaiah thrived, their laughter filling the halls, their kindness spreading like sunlight through the community. Then came a quiet afternoon that would become another story told and retold. A young mother, her face etched with worry, entered with 2 children clinging to her hands. The fear, the uncertainty, the skepticism was palpable. Maya, ever perceptive, approached them immediately. Hi, welcome to More Family Kitchen. You can sit anywhere. Daddy, he made the soup today. It's really good. And if you want, Isaiah makes the whipped cream extra big. The mother's shoulders relaxed just enough to breathe. She allowed her children to lead the way, trusting in the invisible safety Maya offered. Olivia, watching from the window, felt her heart swell. This was the true measure of success. Lives changed, hope restored, and the ripple effect of love. Darnell emerged from the kitchen, wiping his hands on his apron. He knelt beside the family, smiled, and said, "We're so glad you're here. This is your table. Enjoy." And as they sat, as bowls were filled and glasses lifted, the room echoed with a ritual older than memory, yet brand new, a first hello. Maya, Isaiah, Darnell, Olivia, they were all witnesses, participants, and beneficiaries of a tradition that proved the smallest gestures could carry the heaviest truths. In that kitchen, every child was seen, every parent was heard, and every meal was more than food. It was affirmation, resilience, and love. And Olivia Walker, the woman who had once traded humanity for profit, had found her redemption not in wealth, but in being present, in feeling, in acting when it mattered most. The sun set fully, leaving golden streaks on the walls, the smell of bread lingering, laughter fading into the night. Maya and Isaiah sat at their usual table, coloring and chattering, while Darnell began preparing for tomorrow's meals. Olivia sipped her water, reflecting on the journey. She had witnessed loss, cruelty, and corruption, but she had also witnessed the strength of the human spirit, the power of one father, and the legacy of a mother who had always believed in small acts of kindness. "Daddy," Maya whispered as she lifted her glass. "To first hellos." "To first hellos," Darnell echoed, lifting his own. "And to second chances," Olivia added softly. The clink of glasses resonated through the room, a sound of triumph, love, and renewal. A sound that promised that no matter how dark the night, the morning would come, and with it hope. Sometimes, the smallest things carry the heaviest truths. A glass of water, a lifted hand, a witnessed struggle. They remind us that we matter, that our stories matter, and that we're never truly invisible. Maya smiled at Olivia, a mixture of mischief and wisdom. "See? The princess saved everyone. Even you." Olivia laughed, tears falling freely now. "No," she said, shaking her head. "We saved each other." And for a moment, in More Family Kitchen, under the warm glow of shared light and love, the world felt right.